What's happening, y'all? This is Todd Wilson with another episode of Elevate Your Game. Today, we have husband, former Division I college player, now a podcast host, a mortgage broker, and he still hoops too, just a little bit. Dallas Rutherford. Welcome
Nice
to the
to
show.
meet you, Todd. Thanks for having me on the show, man.
Absolutely.
This is awesome.
It's not nice to meet me. Me and Dallas have known each other for 10 years.
Nice to
Even
see
nice
you.
to see
Nice
me.
to see you. Nice to see you.
All good. All good. So we love to start this show off with the wall of hoop movies. Your favorite hoop movie of all time and why?
So there's two movies on this wall that stick out to me the most. But my personal favorite, which I'm not sure, I'm curious if anyone's actually said this movie. For me, it's Space Jam. I love Space Jam. That I'll never forget going to the movie theater with my dad, my uncle, my cousins in Fresno. And I was so hyped to watch it. But my close first, whatever, my second one would be Hoosiers.
Yeah.
And Hoosiers, just my dad used to watch it when I was younger. I've seen that movie 1,000 times. So yeah. Hoosiers, Space Jam #1, Hoosiers #2.
Space Jam. Which character do you relate to the most in Space Jam?
Ooh. Honestly, I like the Monstars. Like, that was like the highlight of it. Like, they were just like the bullies of the show, and I like the Monstars the most.
And their song on the soundtrack was the best. Hit 'em high, hit 'em low.
My goodness, bro.
Yeah, no, it was one of my favorites. I thought it was weird for liking the Monstars, but it's good to know somebody else did.
Okay, I have one trivia for you, and I have to say this story because the trivia is actually this is not true, but for the last 4 years, I thought it was true, okay? And so when I found this out, I was really disappointed. So I'm going to give you a non-true trivia question that I once thought was true. And if it was true, it would be amazing. Amazing. Can you name all the NBA players that were in Space Jam?
Yes.
Start with a couple of them. Just name a few.
So just Michael Jordan.
Okay.
You have Larry Johnson. You have Muggsy Bogues. You have Sean Bradley. And Charles Barkley.
Okay, what if I told you that there was a, and again, this isn't true, so it kills it, but this is why it's so disappointing for me. There was a rumor about this, but what if I told you there was an NBA player that's still in the league that was in Space Jam?
Eric Gordon.
That's not true.
So that wasn't him as Michael Jordan?
Correct.
Michael
you're
Jordan's
like one
son.
of the first person, yes.
That wasn't him.
I read this. I read an article, and they like debunked it. So maybe it is true. But isn't that disappointing if that's not true?
I thought Eric Gordon was Michael Jordan's son this whole time.
That was like my best basketball trivia question. And then I read this thing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I've been telling this story to everyone.
We gotta ask Eric Gordon himself. Let's find out. That's crazy if that's not true.
I'm surprised you knew that though. That's there you go.
Great. So we like to start this off, man. When did you fall in love with basketball?
I fell in love with basketball. I mean, I can't really put an age number on it, but pretty much my whole life, my dad obviously was a big hoop junkie head, and he just had a basketball in my hands as long as I could remember. So I just kind of grew up, I think my dad just kind of instilled that in me when I was just a kid.
Yeah, just a kid. Yeah, no, I started playing when I was 11, so it's always interesting to see when people like actually fell in love with the game. And I think I fell in love with it right when I touched the basketball and watched Sunset Park. It was all around the same time, which was interesting. But no, it's always good to see people who, like, you had it in the crib. Like my son has his ball in the crib, and it's like, oh no, this is a part of life. This is a normal part of what we do in our life.
Yep.
When did you start getting serious about basketball?
When did I start getting serious at basketball?
Playing at a high level.
Playing at a high level, so I always tell people, like, I wasn't the type of guy, like, I wasn't a worker. I didn't work on my game. As crazy as that sounds, most people think I was, one of those kids that was waking up early and getting 1,000 shots up before school. I just like to hoop. And I would work. My work was playing. Like, I would just play a lot and, kind of try to translate things into, like, real life basketball. Like, I used to know kids that could dribble 2 balls up and down, the court between their legs and do all. I couldn't do any of that. But in the game, I would know what I would, I would have better moves than the kid that could do, like, all this other stuff. But my my time when I started taking it seriously, and what really kind of helped me, I think, become the player that I once um, was in like sixth grade. My dad had a relationship with the Pump brothers, Dana and David Pump, who at one time were in the top 100 most influential people in sports. And anybody that's been in the Valley or really in the AAU scene remembers kind of those pump and run teams. And we were kind of the last pump and run team that was really good. But in sixth grade, the Pumps allowed me to go work out with the current pump team that they had then. So I started playing with like Jordan Farmar and Nick Young, Trevor Ariza, anybody that was in LA. I always forget the one big kid that went to Fairfax. He's still in the league. Tall centers. So I always
Not Amir Johnson.
Amir Johnson.
Okay, yeah.
And so here I am, and in sixth grade, just a scrawny white kid. I wasn't that athletic at the time, but I was able to go down to the pump practices right when I started middle school. And that's really when I started getting a little more, not that competitive, but when I started to have to learn how to think more, because I wasn't going to be able to compete with those guys on a physical level. But just doing all the drills with them and learning how to shoot over a 6'10" kid, or have Nick on the wing and Jordan Farmar guarding me, and doing all these drills. So really in like sixth grade is when that's when I started getting good.
It's crazy to think all those guys were together in sixth grade playing against each other or playing with each other.
Yeah, well, I'm in sixth grade. Those guys are in high school. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like it was sixth, seventh grade. Then those guys a couple years older than me, grade wise. So I was playing with just high school kids that were the best high school kids in the Valley at the time. And most of them ended up going to the NBA, which is crazy. But that's what got me.
Got you right.
Got me to where I got to.
Wow.
Was playing with those guys.
So before that moment, like you said, you were just out there hooping. Was there a skills training of any sort? Was there somebody showing you what to do on the court, or was it all watching and then replicating?
Everything came from my dad. Everything came from my dad, and I think a lot of I think it's a little different. There's some especially now, and I've talked with Tarek about this. It's crazy to see the parents in like the AAU scene and skills trainers now. It's like a cool, popular thing to do. That was my dad, you know what I mean? So we would just be in the backyard working on footwork, and I think my dad, more than most parents, actually kind of knows what he's talking about and was teaching me the right things. And so it really just, my skills trainer was my dad.
Yeah. Shout out to Dudley.
Yeah,
He's
Pastor
Dudley, the head coach of Heritage girls basketball right now as well. So he's still doing it.
We're rooting for
years
you, Doug.
later. Yeah, we got your back. We're supporting you. And so that's awesome. I think that's a huge point. I kind of make this a point to everyone who comes on the show who played at a higher level, is that how important it is for their parents at that young age to show them. Most of the great shooters I know, their dad showed them to shoot. Devin Booker, Klay Thompson, all these guys, I've like, hey, who showed you how to shoot? My dad. They're all because their dad was in the backyard with them at a young age showing them that. I think it's super important at that young age, right? And then it sounds like your dad kind of, hey, go and compete once you were ready. I'm sure you guys still worked out and stuff, but that base and that foundation is always found at home. And I'm sure it came more than just basketball. I'm sure he had some philosophical principle he was teaching you while he was doing that. Yep. And so, man, that's awesome. So you start practicing with the pump and run group. Did you start playing in tournaments, or where did that go?
Yeah, I couldn't play in any. I didn't play with them in any tournaments in middle school. But we'd go watch them play. Used to go watch like Dave Hopla. When he was first getting started, which if people don't know who Dave Hopla is, look up Dave Hopla. He's like one of the best shooting coaches in the world. I used to be just mesmerized by I used to go to when I was in sixth grade, when Dave Hopla would do the camps during the summer at the Palms down at Dominguez and stuff like that. Yeah. I'd go and just watch, but I'd be like the rebounding guy. Oh, and nice. So there's a lot of pressure because he's making like 125 shots in a row. And it's like, most people know as a shooter, like a lot of it, depends on who's passing you the ball.
Yes.
If I'm lining the seams up. So started doing that. Then by the time I was a freshman in high school, playing at Hillcrest before they merged to Heritage, which is still crazy to me to think about. That's when I started playing with the Pumps. And so, again, that team, it was me, Clay, Drew, Paul, James Harden was on one team. Brandon would come play with us a little bit. DeMar, just anybody that was good in high school. Larry Drew, Oscar Belfield. I could name Lauren Jackson.
It's crazy.
Anybody you could think of, and so that's when I started playing, and that's really for me how I developed my game, was because at the time I really didn't. I knew I was playing with good players, but you go play with them during the summers, and then you go over to Hillcrest. It was a walk in the park at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I would do during the summers, is just play with those guys.
Yeah. So you went high level basketball. You playing against all these future pros and guys who took the game serious. And I'm not saying people didn't take it serious at Hillcrest, but there's definitely a different level of commitment and dedication at a smaller school, private school, especially at that time. That was when guys were still in public schools hooping. What was your experience there, knowing what you knew and how high competitive you wanted to be with basketball, and taking it to Hillcrest and what that meant to you at that time?
Yeah, at that time, again, I never, one thing my dad, which some people, I'm happy he did this, but looking back on it, I always kind of think, like, what if? Everyone has their what ifs. And I hate when people, just for the record, like, if you don't play in the NBA, I don't like when people talk about their basketball career. It's just stupid. Like, it's just funny to me. Like, so I'm a little uncomfortable even talking about Dallas Rutherford's basketball career, because it's funny. But Hillcrest was a lot of fun. Coach Kendrick, who, we play in the church league together, and he's our coach. We just drew up a game winner. Did you see the game winner?
Oh, yeah. Ian hit.
Dude, I had my phone up,
play.
and it went down. So I usually record the games, and the phone was down for the second half, and everyone was like, dude, you didn't get that on there. But played at Hillcrest with Coach Kendrick and Ryan Halliday, Drew Rigney. My dad helped coach, and then we brought in Dean Bradshaw. Dean Bradshaw, he's the one that taught me how to play defense. I really wasn't a defender, and so I had Dean Bradshaw, and then started getting close with Drew, and Drew was a phenomenal defender, and so Dean Bradshaw taught me how to play that defense, and basically just said, hey, you can't make it to the next level unless you can guard a guard.
Right.
You got to be able to guard a guard. So did that for my freshman and sophomore year. We won Hillcrest's first CIF championship. I think the only one too.
Yes.
The only one.
Yes.
Come on, Tate. And then ended up transferring over to Campbell Hall my junior year and senior year to go play with Drew and Justin. Developed a relationship with them. We went on a church trip to Japan our freshman year. That's where I met Tarek.
Tarek told us
SB Live,
awesome.
and that's how we all met. And Drew and them were just like, come over. And at the time, kind of like what you mentioned, I wanted to go to a public school. And this was a good call by my dad. He's like, there ain't no way you're going to a public school, because I was a little bit of a troublemaker during those years in my life. But I wanted to go play at Taft or Simi or Fairfax.
Right.
I had friends. I'm like, Dad, I'll take the bus down to Fairfax, because I knew how valuable it was to play with those types of athletes on a day in and day out basis.
Yeah.
Like I did some like athletic training. But by the time I was a senior, man, I didn't look athletic, but I knew I could shuffle my feet and I could hang with the best of them, guarding Larry Drew on a weekly basis. It's just you learn. So that's kind of the high school career. We had a good career at Campbell Hall, and we won 2 state championships and got to hang out with Drew and Justin and go to an interesting private school at the time, and I was a Campbell Hall guy.
It's interesting because I look back at those days. You guys changed the landscape of public to private. I think Campbell Hall is a big catalyst here in Southern California for that. And even more so, I want to talk. There's a couple points I want to touch on, and all that you just said is one. transferring, right? You're at a smaller school, transferring to a bigger school mostly because of basketball, if we're being honest about it.
All because
And
of basketball. There's nothing, no
what
other reason.
what was the tone of the people and the media, you making that transfer after winning a title? Now it's huge when somebody transfers, like Tarek is on it. It's a report, it's all that, right? You guys had just won a CIF title, and then you're transferring over to Campbell Hall.
Yeah. Well, I had one more year at Heritage where we lost to, I think it was Rebay Academy, and this is when I'm pretty sure they were cheating, but we lost in like the semis, and I was playing again, playing against, I think they brought in these 3 African kids, and I believe they were from Africa, and against Hillcrest, it's like me, Ryan Halliday is pretty much, Tarek hit a big shot in that game. I grabbed Tarek and I was like, way to step up and be somebody. It's like an inside joke that we have. But transferring to Campbell Hall, the most difficult part of that was me having to tell Coach Kendrick because I like to consider myself, I'm a loyal dude. All my friends know that. I ride or die for my friends and my family and my loved ones. So that was tough, but again, it's like, Coach, I can't get any better, having Billy Corcoran guard me on. You get what I'm saying? Like, I get to go practice every day at Campbell Hall with, at the time, I think that year, I think we had 4 or 5 guys go Division I. I think
from that team, so I've done my research here. From that team, total
7.
11 if you count from senior to
Okay,
sophomore.
yeah.
You had 11 guys go D1 or D2 from those last 2 years of your team. It's like ridiculous amount of talent in little old Campbell Hall at the time. And then just taking it to that next level. You guys literally, I just look back, I'm like, when did it shift?
Yeah.
Because I was there, so I just moved to the Valley in 2007. And I would see Larry Drew at 360 Health Club all the time. I was like the only person. I was a grown up at the time, but I was the only person who could kind of guard him. And so he loved playing against me just so he could work on his game there. And that's when TAF was going and public schools were still it. And then Campbell Hall happens, and then you just see this shift. Harvard Westlake starts to pick it up, and just different private schools. And it's a rich history there. Your name's sitting on the wall still. Yeah. And it's a lot. This is me just giving you your flowers, man. You won championships at multiple schools. Yeah. They're following you. You got some.
I knew how to win. I know how to play my role, and depending on where I was at, I'd like to think that I contributed to winning basketball. But kind of to answer your question, the biggest switch though, from like a media perspective, it was fun going from Hillcrest to Campbell Hall because now I'm playing on ESPN every year, playing on Fox Sports Net, the exposure, not just the athletes that you're playing with, but at the time, I think we were top at, I think our senior year, we were top 5 in the country at one point. And going up to Minnesota and playing Minnetonka, I think that's the name of the school, but we were just playing, the season really wasn't competitive in the league, and I know I don't even know how they do it now with all these open divisions and stuff like that, but I think Campbell Hall was Division 4, something like that. So the season wasn't that competitive, but those games, man, I mean, we were like a college team and before the season would start, traveling, we all had our little jumpsuits on and stuff like that. So that was that was fun because I knew I was getting more exposure.
Yeah, and so did you see a shift? Were you getting recruited coming out of your sophomore year and then going to Campbell Hall? What did that do for your recruitment?
Yeah, so I was verbally committed with Coach Westphal my freshman year.
Was at Pepperdine?
At Pepperdine, and that's where I wanted to go. And I didn't finish my thought that I just realized, but one thing my dad used to always tell me is you're not going to the NBA. Just drilled it into me. You need to go get a degree, go do your school. He made it clear. And so I always wonder if my mind thought that I could have done it, I wonder how far I could have gone. And obviously I made some poor decisions in college when I ended up going to Cal State Northridge, which we can talk about. But my freshman year, I went down to Pepperdine's invite camp, and I was a trash talker. I like to compete. and I ended up doing their camp, and Coach Westphal sitting there on the sideline, and I was getting into one of Pepperdine's players, like players they help run the camp.
Yep.
And so one of the guys got sick of me because I was just chirping him the whole time. And I told him, I can beat you in one-on-one right now, and I'm a freshman, but we got to go 2 dribbles. And that was my thing. Like, it's if you give me 2 dribbles, like king of the court, to this day, I think I'm good at the two dribbles. And again, if I allowed more dribbles, he was a grown man. But I ended up beating him in one-on-one in front of Coach Westphal, and he was a starter for Pepperdine. And then after that, Coach Westphal just brought me over. He goes, repeat after me. Like, I am going to go to Pepperdine. Like, will you give us like a verbal? And I'm like, sure, like at the time. And I was super excited about it.
Right.
Coach Westphal ended up, I think he got fired the following year. And then from a recruiting standpoint, I got recruited by a lot of different schools. I didn't kind of realize at the time, but I also had Coach Braswell at Cal State Northridge was, like a dad to me. And so I heard, at least later on, that a lot of schools in my level, I think I was a low mid-major player, even though I was playing with high major guys. I'd be down at UCLA every weekend during the summer playing with all those guys. But Washington State was a school. I went down for their camp with Clay, did that camp. Then at the end of the camp, the whole coaching staff brought 10 guys out of the 60 guys that they brought and said, hey, I thought the camp was over. I took my shoes off. And they're like, no, Dallas, you're on the top 10 for us right now. Well, you got to go play at one more. And they took us to the big gym to play. Oh, and I killed. And at the end of that one, they just they sat me down, and I was in the office. I forgot the big man's name. And this, I really wanted it because then I would have been playing in the Pac-12.
Right.
And that was kind of like, would have been, I think, I would have exceeded where I realistically thought I was realistic. I didn't think I was going to the NBA. But they just said, hey, look, we got one scholarship. If we go with a big, we're going him. If we're going with a guard, we're going you. And they called me a couple weeks later and said we went with the big.
Fair enough.
And so, yeah, ended up going to Cal State Northridge. And again, had some other schools recruiting me. But I think a lot of my recruitment was everyone knew the relationship that my dad and Bobby had. And that whole thing. So I think a lot of schools knew I was going to Cal State Northridge. And to be honest, I wanted to go to Cal State Northridge just because local, I get to stay with my friends, my family. I thought that I was better than Cal State Northridge. Not like better than the school, but I think I could have played at a higher level. But I knew I'd get to play a lot. By the time I was a sophomore, junior, senior, I'd be the man. I'd have the ball in my hands. You know what I mean? I'd have more of a role. And then most people know got in some trouble at Cal State Northridge. And then after that, man, it was kind of all downhill. Struggled with, you can call it mental health, but just wasn't in a good mindset, and just completely was just like, all right, I'm done. Went to a school in Denver, Coach Sprinkle and Coach Lewis Wilson.
Danny Sprinkle?
Danny Sprinkle.
Oh, wow.
Love Danny Sprinkle. Yeah. Shout out Danny Sprinkle. He just got that new job contract. I want to go be an assistant for him. But they set me up with, at the time, it was the #1 JUCO school up in Denver in the country. I think they just came off a national championship. And I don't know if it's the same anymore, but at the time, because everything has changed, if you play out of California or New York, it's a national JUCO stage. If you play in California, there's so many JUCOs, or like New York, there's you play in a national the state JUCO champion or tournament, whatever. And so went up there, and they offered me, they do scholarships for the out-of-state JUCOs, and they're coming off just winning it. Signed it, ended up calling them and said, hey, I made a mistake. And a lot of that had to do with a lot of the trouble that I caused with my family and just in my own personal life. I didn't want to be away from my family. I thought that I needed to stay home. So ended up going to Moore Park. Then I went to Azusa Pacific. But again, at that time, man, I wasn't, when I was at Moore Park, it was like practice for 1 hour a day. You know what I mean? It was like I'm used to waking up at 6, having to run, and going to class and doing weights, then doing practice, then doing weights again. And then you got to get some extra work in at night. It was like a job. So then after that, I was just, practicing for 1 hour a day at Moore Park, and doing that kind of stuff. So kind of just, and then I ended up quitting. I just said, hey, I'm done. I had it still years of eligibility left. I could have pursued playing either at Azusa another year or tried to go somewhere else. But at that time, I was just so fried from it all.
Yeah.
And again, because of my dad and him giving me realistic expectations on myself, I started working and try and find ways to make money, which I think paid off. I'm happy he did that now because he taught me how to kind of provide for myself, and you got to pay the bills, and if you're not living at the house, which at the time I didn't want to. Now I'd love to move back in, but at the time, you don't want to live. I was like, no, I
Right.
can't do this. But it just kind of taught me how to be an adult and work. You know what I mean? Find ways to make money and be creative, and so that's kind of
That's
the
the
fairy
that is
tale of Dallas Rutherford's basketball career.
so much to unpack. So much to unpack. We do this show for kids who are in similar situations, right? They're striving to be college players and NBA players, or having the expectations to just be successful with basketball, and how even though you don't make it to the pinnacle, right, that it can lead you and guide you to where you need to be in your life. So I want to get back to, you said it when you were deciding to go to maybe a public school in high school. You said, that wasn't for me because I was a little bit of a troublemaker, and then running into a little issue in college. Is there a real pressure, right? They always say, PK, being a pastor's kid,
Oh, that's real.
and what that pressure is like, what that rebellion is like, and then what you learned from that experience in college that helped you later on in life.
Yeah. First of all, the PK thing is 100% true. Used to hate it. Now I love it because you have the pressure of whatever living up to X expectation. But then now that I'm older now also, you get the good part of that, which is my dad's really well networked. People know my last name. So in business, sometimes I feel like I can get inside of different meetings just because they, oh, Dallas Rutherford, like, doesn't your dad, so younger hated it, older now I love it. You know what I mean? And then again, you have to, have some grace and some, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, you can't be cocky about it. You have to, there's a level of, like, I have pride in my last name, you know what I mean? So when I'm doing business with somebody, I know it's not just a reflection of me, but it's my family, it's the church, it's what I like to represent, what my family represents, and that can be tough at times too. But there's pros and cons with being a pastor's kid. But I was a kid that liked to learn. My parents used to always, I was the kid, Dallas, don't touch the stove, it's hot. I'm touching it. Like, I want to learn, and then I like to make that decision based off what I just burnt my hand. Like, I was that kind of kid. But yeah, the biggest thing that it really kind of taught me, at least, was kind of just the pride of my last name, and the decisions that you make don't just affect you. They don't just affect you; they affect everybody, and that was tough. That was to this day, it's a little tough to even talk about, if I'm being honest, just because I did cause a lot of pain and hurt, not just with myself, but I added to the pressure. Like, my dad had to go preach the next weekend, and I was on the front page of the, it was tough, but just kind of seeing what that did to my family, was like, it was a very selfish, immature. Obviously, it was an immature decision, but. It was just, I didn't think about the impact that it had on other people. So that's probably the biggest thing that I took away from it. That, yay, you didn't choose I didn't choose to be a pastor's kid. You know what I mean? But that's the position that God put me in, and I have to, represent not just God but my family. And I think that God should be first, and then obviously you should care about your family. But what my dad does. Not a lot of people can say that that's, like, I'm proud that that's my dad.
Yeah. That's awesome, man.
Yep.
That's awesome. Just full circle, looking back and reflecting, and where you've come since that point is awesome. And for the message to be, you have to consider the impact, not just on yourself, but the people around you, is so important for these kids, because they have more opportunity to mess stuff up with social media and everything now. And so I'm constantly reminding them of the impact, and it's on a smaller scale with us. We have middle schoolers, right, who can post on all these social media platforms, and hey, you're reflecting core. People know you're a part of my program, and you're reflecting me. This is how I pay for my family. You ain't messing up with my family. You can, you know, and hey, your name and the school and everything you represent is so packed into this. And I do want you to feel a little pressure because that's life. If you want to be great and you want to have options when you get older and these opportunities, your brand that you're building now, even as a middle schooler for these kids, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's real.
It matters, right?
Yep.
When for you, it happened more, probably in high school, you would have had a similar impact.
A little bit. I started
a little later, but then
getting a little
college
clout.
for sure,
Like,
right?
You know what I mean? It's crazy
and then
now.
college for sure, and that's amazing. What would you have for the kids? Here, let me ask this question. All right, I'm the ring camera, right? What does Dallas's brain look like as you're recovering from that situation? You said you went through. You said you don't want to call it mental health, but I'm pretty sure it was some type of mental health.
I think I'm pretty open about speaking about that kind of stuff. But what was my mindset after that?
Yeah. What did you go through? What emotions and how did you get back
man.
to a point where you were being productive?
I had some very difficult times after that. Some dark times, and again, I had to go learn, like, okay, if I deal with this emotion by going to drugs, alcohol, women, whatever it may be, let me try to fill this hurt that I'm feeling with all this other distraction, call it that. And then you realize, like, man, this ain't helping. And so I had a really bad night, and I'll leave it at that. And I finally, for the first time in a long time, just decided to start reading my Bible. And that for me, because again, going to church, and some people, like even my parents sometimes maybe don't understand it, but I think they do. It's hard for me to even go to church sometimes because I feel like people are looking or judging, or like I'm not focused on just church. So I started going to other churches just because I could just feel like normal, if that makes sense. But really just started reading my Bible and kind of seeking it is kind of what turned everything around, I think, in my life. Is just had a real bad night and woke up the next morning just like, what are you doing? And then slowly, again, I wasn't, just woke up and started living a perfect life that second. But it was the first time in my brain where I was like, okay, this is not working. I got to change something up. So that's kind of how my journey kind of started after that, was just opening up my Bible on my own accord and just going, I got to try something else.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Awesome. Amen. Yeah. And I think that's so important that you go back to the foundation, right? And it wasn't like you didn't know that before, but kids, you're all going to go through something in life where you're going to hit the bottom, and you have to know what to turn to and what not to do, because we all go through it. We all have that moment. So I think that's the important part. How do you pull yourself out of something that feels like you're probably unrecoverable, right? Cool, man. Thank you for sharing that, by the way. That's what this is about, is really getting down to the depth of those moments of adversity and coming out of them. So basketball is over. What's next? What did you transition into after you left Azusa, and how did you get to where you are now, man? Co-hosting with these kids, GOAT, Paul George, and being a husband and just seeking different business opportunities. So what happened between that time?
Yeah, so after I was done with college, and I'm not going to get into too much detail about it, but essentially I started dabbling around with social media, which is crazy to think about now. The kids, it's so popular. But at the time, it was like right when Instagram was coming out and stuff like that. So in my 20s, I kind of started a social media agency where I'd help people grow their pages. And at the time, it was awesome. I had several hundred clients that I was working with on a monthly basis during my 20s, which was great. But then again, maybe not the best thing for me, because it was just easy money at the time. I didn't have to show up to... my 20s were not your typical 20s. Just because of the business that I kind of had created for myself. I was doing remote work before anyone was doing remote work, and all my other buddies were in, their own careers and showing up to the office. And so probably when I was like 25, 26, I've been doing social media for the last 5 years, being able to provide for myself and live pretty comfortably. I got bored of working from home. And I went and got a job, just was like, I just want to go try something. And so I went on like Indeed or something online and got saw a job for being a loan officer at a call center. So there's call center LOs and then there's self-source LOs. Call center, company provides you leads. Self-source, you go and develop relationships and get referral business. You get paid more on this end, but you get a paycheck on this end no matter what you do. So I went to a call center in Calabasas and ended up becoming friends with the manager that was running the whole company, and he was my age. And I was super intrigued by him. His name's Edwin, who I'm still close friends with today. But I was just so intrigued because it's all these grown men, and then there's a guy my age managing all these guys. And he was a killer on the phones. He knew everything about loans. And so developed a really good relationship with him, which I'd like to talk about relationships because that's what I think is the most important thing in life. But started working with him for a while, and he ended up going from the call center world over to the self-source world, and have been doing mortgages ever since. So if you're out there and you're looking to buy or refinance, give me a call. My number will be no.
No, go ahead, please. We do that.
Have been doing loans, so a lot of people to this day they get confused. Like, I'm not a real estate agent. I don't help people find homes, but in order to buy a house, you have to have money to buy the house. So you got to go to the bank. We look at your credit, what kind of income you have, your debt, and we give you an amount that you're pre-approved for so that you can start making monthly payments.
When are interest rates going down, man?
Well, they've actually gone down for 3 weeks consecutively, which is very small, but it's a good sign. I could get into our economy and all that stuff, but it would be extremely boring. But we'll see what happens. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still think it's a good time to buy. That's just my opinion. I tell people all the time, if you're a first-time home buyer, right now is still a good time to buy because interest rates will always fluctuate. And right now there's not a whole lot of competition in the market because people can't afford it.
Right.
So in COVID, you place an offer on a house, there'd be 700 people bidding on the house. So for, let's say you're buying a $500,000 condo, that condo could go for $750 because there's 700 people bidding on it. Well, now rates are high, so now there's 5, 4, 3, 2 people bidding on that $500,000 house. Yes, the payment's higher, but if you're comfortable with that monthly payment and can weather the storm per se, then you're good. Get in the house now, you can get seller credits, you can get credit to buy down your rate, and then when rates do drop, then you just refinance your payment and have a more affordable payment. And then the podcast, which I like to talk about relationships, because it's just crazy how it works out. Like, yes, my basketball career didn't go as planned. Like, I have friends to this day that are still overseas. They're 34 years old, and I respect it, but I knew I could not have done that. Like, could not have still been overseas playing basketball away from your family. Like, they're, once they're done playing, it's going to hit them. It hits them hard. And I had to go through that at a younger age, which I'm glad I kind of got it out the way. Like, bro, it's over. You know what I mean? It's church league from here on out. But the amount of people that I met, and I felt like I did a decent job, but now as an adult, I know I could have done a way better job of networking and the importance of all these people that you're meeting. I mean, the caliber of guys that I played with, at the end of the day, I know that I at least was a good friend. I've never asked anyone for really anything my whole life with all the NBA guys I know, and just keeping a genuine good relationship with people and keeping that in mind. Like, all these tournaments the kids might be going to, or guys on their, there could be a guy on your team that starts the next Microsoft or something like that. And a lot of these public or private schools now, I mean, there's some kids that have family in there that are sons of somebody that one day they're going to take over. So the relationship aspect of it is the coolest thing that basketball brought to me. I'm still friends with so many guys that I've played with, and even like the James Harden thing. I remember being in I think I was in eighth grade, and we used to do this drill at Artesia High School, where you start at the free throw line, and there's the defender's at the free throw line with a cone on each block or elbow, and there'd be a line at half court. Coach would pass him the ball catch it in stride, and I'd have to play defense on James Harden and Russ and Jordan Farmer. And these guys are coming at me 1,000 miles per hour, and I'm just sitting there at the free throw line like, okay. But again, all these guys that you played with.
Did you tell me about that drill? I do that drill. I call it the James Harden drill. I learned it maybe 10 years ago.
That's one of my most favorite
I think maybe
drills,
you told
bro.
me about it. Yeah, that's
I used
crazy.
to show Tarek hated that drill, but
I bet.
it teaches you, again, playing with athletes like that. You got to learn how to guess or put your body in the right position and so forth. But again, just the relationships of it all. Paul gave me the opportunity to, I've been friends with Paul for a long time now, and kind of chirped in his ear about, hey man, you should do a podcast, because I've been listening to so many podcasts. He's super well spoken. I don't think people really know like Paul as a person as much. Now they kind of have an idea, because they get to hear him speak and kind of hear his wisdom and how he carries himself. But he's just a great dude and can relate to all walks of life, like I mentioned. And so gave me the opportunity to do the podcast, and now I'm absolutely big blessing. It's been fun. I'm meeting new guys. Got to interview Jerry West and
That's awesome.
Sitting with all these guys. So now I'm doing the podcast and I'm doing the mortgages, and it's been fun.
Sweet. So I'm a high school player, going to all these AAU tournaments and events and meeting different coaches and players. What are my networking tools? If you had 3 networking tools that you would say, hey, these are the 3 things you need to do anywhere you go, what would you tell that kid?
Man, if I was if I was a kid today, social media, that's basically your business card. And kind of to your point, like, your kids are a reflection of Core Academy. That's real. You could start building your own brand right now. And social media can be a scary place, because today, if I decided, hey, I'm going to act like I'm a doctor, I could literally start posting, doctor pieces of content, and people are going to start looking at me like I'm a doctor, and I might not be a doctor.
Right.
But the point is that social media is literally your business card. It's a quick glance where people can kind of get an idea of who you are and what you're about. So I'd be connecting with everyone on social media, and then I'd be doing it old school too. I'd be getting phone numbers and emails, and I would be contacting these people almost like having a little CRM. And just checking in with different people in the community and building relationships. And if anybody literally in this age right now starts asking for, hey, let me get your name and number, I want to stay in contact with you. It's a very simple request.
Right.
You check in with that person for the next 10 years.
Well, they say, let me get your snap, is what they say now.
No, I'm not doing the snap. But if a kid's watching this and does this in 10 years, he'll be a wealthy man.
Awesome. So, yeah, no, I think that's important for kids. I always, we call it when the ball stops bouncing, preparing for what's after, right? What are you interested in now? What would you do if you had all the money in the world? What would you want to be a part of? And just giving kids that pathway, right? And giving them, like, I would love for you to come and actually speak to the kids directly at Core, your journey and how basketball, the physical playing part of basketball stopped, but you still have a ball in your hands today, whenever you want to. Like, you have access to, you're pretty much, I always say that, like, no, I'm not in the NBA, but kind of am. I kind of know a lot of players. I get to be on the court with them. I'm in the NBA in my eyes. Like, this is glorious for me. Like, to just be connected to the game so close.
Yeah, and that's, again, for me, I get to live vicariously through, like, guys that are NBA. It's crazy. And again, it's all God. Like, the places I was put in and stuff like that, like, I know it's not common to have friends that are not just in the NBA, but like they're the best in the NBA. Like, they're all-stars in the NBA, long careers, not, and just getting to the NBA is like almost impossible. But I get to tell people all the time, I get to go out there and watch my best friend dribble this basketball, and it's fun. It's I get to go to all the games. I'm not in the NBA, but at times it feels like I'm there. You know what I mean? And it's been a joy to have that insight into, and it's difficult. I tell people all the time, most common people think the NBA are so judgmental and they always got something to say. There is so much that goes into. I do not envy Paul's life one bit.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter the money. It's you think you got problems now, you'd have a lot more problems if you were in the NBA.
Right.
A lot more problems. So
A lot of
it's
management.
you have to be a special person, not just athletically, but you have to be a solid special person, spiritually and what's inside to be able to handle everything that comes with the league.
No, that's great advice, and that's why we character, and what you do and how you do it matters, not just how you hoop. And we try to instill that into the kids at a young age, and some of them just don't get it. They just don't understand how that impacts you for the long term.
Yeah.
And when these guys are done, when Paul's done playing, he's gonna have so many opportunities because of how he led his career, how he worked his butt off every moment and just gave his all. That means so much, and it's going to open up opportunities for other people. What's your favorite part about podcasting?
My favorite part about podcasting is just learning and being able to just get to know people. You know what I mean? It's at first I was really nervous on the podcast, like my first one that I did, but now it's just an opportunity to just learn more about another person, try to build a relationship. Obviously, you don't want to force anything, but just some of the stories and the different backgrounds and how they made it to the NBA and hearing some of these stories. It's basketball. I mean, I get paid to show up for an hour and talk basketball with one of my homies and somebody else that plays in the NBA. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just the people person, the people person that I am is just being able to have conversations with different people in the game was just my favorite thing. I like to talk with them.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's same here. It's just been a joy to get to know people, like you said, and to just talk hoop, man, and not that basketball. I don't believe the term ball is life, right? I think it puts basketball in this
Pedestal
and like an idol almost, right? Where we center our life around basketball, but we should be centering our life around God, family, and these other things that will outlast what basketball can do. And basketball can be that catalyst, though, that sparks your life, right? Like, I just stay connected to basketball no matter what happened. Basketball is literally in my vows that I get to play in an adult league every week.
Is it?
Literally in my vows.
You're sick, bro.
No, I was like,
You're sick,
I said,
bro.
my wife can't take this from me. She can't, because it helps me love her better. Like the Thursday nights we do right now is like, man,
Which, by the way, we're undefeated. We beat Todd's team. And my dad did say you need to work on your defense. He wanted me to tell you this on this podcast.
Did he
today.
see me in the second half?
No. Maybe he did. I left.
He left? Okay.
I left. So I don't know if
I did terrible. We were playing a 2-3 defense. I played terrible. I don't really. The team was terrible. In the second half, I played man-to-man. I locked dude down.
Well, you play with Josh Merrill. He's a ball hog. So.
Oh, man. He is the best. Josh, love you. Hey, we've won multiple championships this year. I don't even think I think we may be in the play-in game.
This league is fun. It's the best league I think we've had in a while. Like, balance of teams and stuff like that. So it's going to be fun.
Yep. This is over at Shepherd Church, guys. Thursday nights, they have multiple leagues, no matter your skill level.
Come get it.
Yeah, you could try to come into our league. You're going to lose. Like, it's some tough teams. They've been playing together since high school, and they're still together. And, yeah, it's fun, though. That's I'm all sidetracked now.
You're good.
I'm thinking about hooping. So podcast. So on that subject, we're gonna roll right into my Rushmore. Okay.
Okay.
Your top 4 podcasts.
Okay, my top 4 podcasts
that you currently listen to.
That I'm currently listening to, and this is gonna be a tough because I do listen to a few. Well, number 1, gotta be Podcast P is number 1. But following up with that, I'm going to go with Patrick Bet-David's podcast. I think he does a great job of talking, current events, culture, business, politics. If you're interested in listening to a podcast that is just very well-rounded with the subjects that they cover, it's from A to Z. And so I think it can give you a quick synopsis of, like, what's going on in today and how it actually applies to you.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be number 2. Shout out Patrick Bet-David and Tom Ellsworth. Number 3. This is going to be I like Full Send. I like the Full Send and Elk Boys podcast. I think they also do a fantastic job of just bringing all sorts of different guests in. They haven't been as consistent lately, so I could probably put, my 4th would be Joe Rogan's podcast.
Yeah.
Again, I think he brings, it's all about the guests. It really is.
Right.
And just bringing different people in. And again, you just learn. It doesn't matter if you're talking to a doctor, a basketball player, a business guy, a politician, a pastor. It doesn't matter what it is. You can just get some insight of different people's lives. So our podcast P number 1. What did I say? Number 2.
So
Patrick Bet-David's.
You don't have to rank them because they're all on the Rushmore. They're
Joe
the top,
Rogan
but,
and I'm gonna go Full Send.
Like it, man. That's good. I think it's eclectic. You got something all the way across the board with what you're doing. My 4 would be. I'm gonna start with the Huberman Lab. I love just the science of us improving ourselves and our lives. The stuff that you learn on there is like. That's crazy. Like
you gotta listen to Gary Brecka.
Okay.
Go watch the last Joe Rogan had him on.
Okay.
I'm just getting on, like, you enjoying that science stuff. I've never had any interest in it. Now I'm like, what am I putting into my body?
Yes.
I ordered Celtic sea salt. I'm ordering all this like random stuff that I'm just trying. But sorry, you got to go watch that episode.
No, thank you. No, I appreciate. I'm doing a lot of research and that kind of stuff. Our parents are getting older and they're having all these, blood pressure and all these things. I'm like, hey, you guys just need to eat healthier. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys been putting crap in your body for a long time. They're the generation where they stop caring about food and they just consumed. And we're like the conscious generation now where we're like, hey, you can eat good, still have some flavor, and eat healthy. Like, it works both ways. So yeah, Huberman Lab. The next one is actually the Bible Project. I don't know if you've ever seen those videos. So they have a YouTube series where they animate and they break the Bible down in a way where it's like super like layman terms. Like they break down every book of the Bible, different words in the Bible, so you understand the story. They look at it from a literary context and how it was written, and man, it's amazing. They'll break down like what does it mean, what does love mean, and how it's used in the Bible. And there's a 4-minute video and they just break it down. Man. And so in the podcast, so it's about an hour and a half where they actually deep dive into multiple subjects. And so you want some like deep dive into the Bible and really understand it and who was writing it, why they were writing it, the language.
I just had a conversation with my mom about when it says you need to have, like, when people say like fear God. Yes. Like you need to have a fear of God. What does that word fear and what other words does it actually mean? So I'm gonna listen to it.
There is a video specifically about the fear of God, and like you're gonna. So I found it. I discovered it during COVID, and so I binged it. They have
the Bible Project.
The Bible Project. Oh man, amazing! Yeah, they have an app and everything. They teach you the Hebrew Bible. Yep. It's sick. So yeah, the Bible Project. Third one on my mount. Diary of a CEO. By. Ooh.
It's okay. You know the title.
Yes, Diary of a CEO. So he interviews, he's like a venture capitalist and he's made a lot of money. Sold his company right now, and he gets these CEOs on there and they deep dive into everything. A lot like Joe Rogan. It's this guy is probably the best interviewer I've ever heard. Like the questions he asks are ridiculous, and they deep dive into everything. I had a guy on there last week who he's got a perfect score on his sleep. He uses the Whoop he had 100 score for 6 straight months by doing these things, and he's telling you the formula to get the perfect sleep.
Is this the skinny white guy that kind of almost looks like he does all the infrared stuff and?
Stephen Bartlett, yeah, good, yeah, Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett.
I might have seen it.
So I listened to it. I've never seen the guest, so I don't know who he looks like. Okay. But yeah, it might be. But he's gotten perfect. Like there's only one person who's gotten perfect sleep.
I think I know who this guy is.
Yeah, no, he's pretty sick. So I love that show. And then 4th, this is tough because I know I'm supposed to love myself, but I don't know if my podcast is my favorite one, my top four. I love this show though. It's probably Podcast P. I think you guys do a great job. I got to give y'all love. I got to give y'all love. It's just great dynamic. And like you said, man, seeing an NBA player of his caliber to be vulnerable and like just really just chop it up and be himself. You could tell he's just like literally in his lane himself. And you do a great job, like I said, man, just bringing a different perspective and, you know, getting the guests to open up, man. You guys do a great job. So
Thank you.
Shout out to Podcast P podcast. Yeah.
I do have one last thing I want to say. I watched a couple clips. JJ Prince, Coach Prince.
Yeah.
Coach Prince is my guy. I just wanted to shout out Coach Prince, one of my all-time favorite coaches, and Coach Prince will always have a special place in my heart.
Man, no, he's had a lot of impact on a lot of people, and he's kind of low key. Like if you really like think about all he's done and having him on here and just seeing the response to his clips. Like he didn't even, I usually collab posts on these things. He didn't even collab, and he got like, for me, 6,000 views in a day is pretty crazy. I only have like 5,000 followers.
Right.
And his went crazy without a collab or anything. And he's a lot of just perspective and peace and wisdom and what he has.
He's such a good dude. Him and again, you know, Coach Prince and Coach Tate, you know, both were the assistants when I was at Campbell Hall.
Yeah.
And we had we all had some good times together. And it's again goes back to relationships. Like I still try to keep in touch with Coach Prince and have kind of watched him kind of go from different schools and things like that. But I think it's awesome that he's it's crazy to think he's still coaching. You know what I mean? But I know he's got to be doing a fantastic job.
No, yeah, he's killing it.
He's a great guy.
He's been there 15 years now or 12 years, something crazy. Like he's been at Viewpoint and killing it. CIF titles and doing his thing. And so, no, great guest. Thank you.
I wanted to mention him.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. We have to do another My Rushmore. You're a Valley kid. You've seen them all from, you know, being in there. Like you said, you were around LA players from 6th grade until, you know, even seeing them now. Your top 4 Valley basketball players, San Fernando Valley of all time.
So number 1 is the easiest pick because I'm ranking them. Well, I got to rank number 1.
Okay.
I personally think that Jrue Holiday is the best basketball player to ever come from the Valley. The most well-rounded. Jrue was, you know, in high school when I was playing with the Pumps with Clay and Paul, no one thought that Klay Thompson and Paul George were going to be in the NBA in high school.
Wow.
No, you didn't see it. Maybe, but like when Jrue stepped on that court,
no doubt,
whole different ball game, bro. Even watching these games, like, because now it's fun for me to look at the top teams now and go, I wonder if our Campbell Hall team could have beat them. Yeah. And I have not seen one kid, and I've seen them all the Sierra Canyon teams and Harvard West, all these teams. Jrue would still average 40 points a game if he wanted to in high school. So I think Jrue Holiday is the best Valley basketball player. Got to put Paul up there. You know, got to put up Paul the way his career has unfolded. Not many people from the Valley have been so many times all-star and been able to accomplish some of the stuff he's done.
We count Palmdale Lancaster as the Valley guys. Just for all you guys, like, oh, it's the Valley.
Yeah. Shout out Palmdale. And then got to put some of the older guys. Jordan Farmar, I think he kind of...
I said Jordan Farmar like he's old. He's my age, man. Don't old school us. Don't old school us.
But Jordan Farmar, I think, kind of set the tone a little bit for like Valley. You know, the Valley is kind of like a staple. And then lastly, another guy, I've met Gilbert a few times here and there, but I would put Gilbert. I remember going to Gilbert's games when he was in high school. I've watched Gilbert Arenas play basketball in high school in the Valley. My dad used to take me. But I would say, you know, Gilbert was a problem. So I would put those would be my 4.
Nice. It's going to be hard to think of a different 4 than those. Those are all phenomenal players, and we're not even going back. It's like we're almost Gil's the oldest guy we have. I'm sure there's other people in the
Yeah.
valley that we don't even know, before our time. But for sure, like you said, Drew, he was what, number one, number two player in the country at the time, and he played point guard to the post to everything in high school.
Defense.
Yeah,
He's,
and
he's incredible.
still doing it. I was watching Boston yesterday. Like, man, this dude
He's
is.
he's the most underrated. Like, people don't understand how good Drew is.
Yeah, he
You
literally
gotta know
plays.
basketball. He affects every single play, even if he doesn't touch the ball. He's doing something that's like, oh my goodness, like he's always doing the right thing.
100%. So I got Drew. I got Gilbert just from, I never seen him play. I've seen film and just what I've heard from people on the show actually, and his impact and who he was playing against when he did. And let's see, going to go.
You want to put Swaggy on there?
No, personally I don't. No, I love Swaggy.
Swaggy,
I need you on the show.
though.
Yes, no, he is. He is. I'll put Jordan. Jordan was one of my favorite players, just at UCLA and all that time. And we're in the same graduating class. So I lived in the IE at the time. And so, like, just knowing who he was and seeing games at the showcases and all that, man, he was just ridiculous, man. Pulling up from 30 feet and just his swag on the court and being a light-skinned guard, like, I could just relate. And
You
then
could relate?
Yeah. And then getting to know him later when he was playing for the Lakers, he used to actually hit me up to do like midnight one-on-one. Like, we'd just go play at his house at midnight and just have like literally 2-hour battles. I would never score or win ever,
Right.
but to compete and play with him. And so it's just a cool thing. So this fourth one, I'm gonna mess everybody up, is actually somebody who only played in the Valley for 2 years. And I say it all the time, man, but
I think I know.
I physically saw this kid, like, he was just ridiculous.
The younger guy.
Sky Clark. I don't care what anybody says, man. This kid was just, in the 2 years he played out here, then he moved to Tennessee. He's at Louisville now. And, man, he dominated, man. Kid shot 56% from the field, 50% from three, averaging 25, 7, and 7.
Yeah.
Like, and only lost 2 games. And I just seen him demolish people, man. It was like if somebody was tracking to have what Drew did was him, and then he moved to Tennessee, and
big,
so he's
strong. I've tried to keep in touch with Sky here and there and just send him some encouragement, but he's.
Yeah, man,
we'll see what happens.
He's at Louisville. I think he got injured in high school his senior year with torn ACL. He got over that mental hurdle of getting back from injury, and he has an opportunity at Louisville. He has to take advantage of it, man. Yeah. And that's the thing. But when he was in high school, man, I don't care what anybody says. That kid was so good.
Let me ask you this. I have a question for you. Who's the best player in the Valley now?
Elijah Arenas.
Is he?
Not even going to hesitate.
I just went to that because I stopped by and Tark was like, he played earlier. I haven't seen him play.
Yeah, I was just at his game last night. He's
sophomore?
Sophomore. 6'6" now.
He's the best player in the Valley.
We're talking about straight talent, like projecting to go to the NBA and maybe have an all-star career. Elijah Arenas. There's some, now, every player has things they can improve on, so he can improve his effort on defense. And I hope you hear this, kid. He can improve his effort on defense and just his game awareness a little more, and he knows that. But
it makes sense.
Literally unstoppable on offense.
Gilbert's kid.
And he gets double and triple teamed, and his passing ability is ridiculous. It's just, he's crazy, man.
I really enjoyed watching Gilbert. He had like a camera outside on the basketball hoop, and he was doing one of his when he puts his face up there and he talks about the clip, but it was him and his son in the backyard, and they were in the post, and he was talking about, like, I didn't know if he traveled, so I had him do it again, but they were just out in the backyard, working on his pivot, let me turn, pump fake, and then you got to have a move like Kawhi. If you can't, if he doesn't bite for any of the 3 moves, you got to be able to get in there. So it makes a lot of sense that that's your pick.
Yeah, no, the kid can go. And so he was part of core for 3 years too, right? And so when Elijah first started getting into basketball, and so being a part of his development and that ground level to see, like, the kid's mindset, right? That's what I always look at is there's a lot of kids who have skills and talent, right? But I know what a pro mindset looks like, just being around NBA players, and the focus he has on the court is just like, it's crazy. And the stuff, he picks it up and he works and he works and he works. So
I got one more question for you, Todd, because I actually am curious about this. How much defense do you in your skills work? Because when I look at all these guys on Instagram that do, again, I've never been inside one of, I'm not saying someone. I know a lot of guys that do basketball training. I never see anybody teaching people how to play defense.
I do. It's not an everyday thing for sure. It takes me about 3 weeks to teach somebody defense. So that's how I got working with NBA players. So Joe Bunassar with Impact used to call me in to just play defense on NBA players because I'm competitive and I just have good defensive strategy one-on-one. And so it is something I do when kids are physically ready for it, actually, because the way you have to play defense is very physical when you get to that higher level. But it takes me, I do a 3-week thing where it's all about defense and they turn a corner. So we do it in core every day in my training program. When it's more of a group setting, but we do a defensive principle every day, whether that's, slides, kickouts, recovering, walling up, or whatever it is. But as a skills trainer, I do a 3-week thing where we just go hard. And once they get it, once they understand the concept, you don't really have to teach it anymore, So,
you gotta try to have Dean Bradshaw.
Okay. He was doing it with the girls. Okay.
That guy, some of the stuff, which we can talk about later, but some of the stuff that he taught me, stuff I never have been, and I'd like to think I've had a lot of good teachers besides my dad. Like I was always around good high IQ, basketball people, and some of the stuff he taught me is like stuff I've never seen be taught anywhere else.
Yeah. No, I gotta check it out. Yeah. Now, so I'm doing this stuff with the girls. It was on an Instagram post randomly, and I'm like, oh.
I think my dad has him in
he's coming. Okay, that makes sense.
I think he was in there helping with my dad and had Coach Bradshaw come down.
Nice.
Love Dean Bradshaw.
Yeah, man, I gotta get that work. So, now the next part of our show was flip the script, where you asked me 2 questions. So you have to do it again.
I gotta ask you 2
yeah, because those. Yeah.
Okay.
They don't have to be about basketball.
Okay. Who would be? I got easy. Yep. Who would be all-time guest that you would want on? Like if you could pick one guest to be on the show, who's your dream guest?
Vince Carter.
Really?
My favorite player ever, and I want Vince Carter on here.
Okay.
That's easy.
And then my second question would be, what's your long-term goal? You've been at Core for a while. Do you want to be a coach? Do you want to get more involved in the NBA? What's like your pinnacle, like in your mind, what's the pinnacle of success look like for you?
Absolutely. I think Core will always be there. I think we've developed a business and a program that is so beneficial to kids that it will outlast me. And so we're just building the infrastructure to always keep that going, and I'll always be a part of that because Core for me is ministry, actually. Like, yes, it is financially provides for my family. At some point or another, though, it is ministry, man. I get to spend time with these kids at a very pivotal time in their life and give them the guidance they need to reach their goals, that's what I love to do. I love to encourage and inspire people to reach their goals and get to the next level. And so Core will always be there. My next step is this stuff. Like I'm praying that this thing takes off. I'm gonna just be consistent. I think we have a good show. I think we have great guests. I think we are giving information and guidance to this next generation, what they really need and where this game is going and how to use it to springboard to the next level for themselves. And so a lot more media stuff. And ultimately, I want to just stay in this like a consulting role. Anything connected to basketball, really, where I can get you to the next level. And so I'm starting consulting. It's called the Basketball Firm, where it's like more of a personal development program for student athletes, where we're doing a 6-week guide of, hey, you want to be an NBA player. All right, here's the blueprint for that. And really giving them what it takes to get there. And now understanding also, you may not get there, but we're giving you the blueprint to, like you said, create those relationships that you'll need to get to the next level, and just being a guide And so hopefully that leads me into other rooms where I can consult with the NBA, consult with teams or programs, shoe brands, wherever they need a dose of the youth development. I think that's where my expertise comes in, or just how to grow a business in the basketball space. Been able to do that. So
Cool.
yeah, that's it. You got 24-second shot clock. No, there's been one person that stayed under 24 seconds so far. Maybe two? One, two,
Oh, I'm
two
gonna
now.
do horrible at this. Whatever this is, I already know I'm gonna do bad at it.
So that's your camera there.
Oh Lord.
Let the people know where they can find you,
Oh,
and
okay,
a message you have for them, or anything that you want to let them know. You got 24 seconds. Nobody's really counting.
So you can find me on Instagram at Dallas Rutherford if you're looking to buy a home. Maybe you're looking to refinance. Maybe it's your first starter home or it's an investment property. Just shoot me a DM. I would love to walk you through the process. If you're a real estate agent and you're looking for a loan officer to work with and assist you, not only just on the loan side, but help with your branding and your social media. That's what I do as a value add to my agent partners. And then lastly, if you're a loan officer and you're looking to join a team or get into the loan game, shoot me a message. I'm about to start my own team out here in Los Angeles.
Awesome. Guys, great show, man. Thank you for all your insight, man, and sharing your experience. We look forward to seeing you on the podcast. I look forward to maybe getting a mortgage loan from you one day as well.
Let me know, bro.
So
Appreciate
you,
Yep,
man.
it's fun.
Thanks for doing the show.